The U.S. has paused military aid to Ukraine as well as information sharing. Then there's that Oval Office debacle. And now Europe is stepping in to fill the gap. 26 countries pledged what they call regular and predictable help to Ukraine. This as the U.S. pivots toward Russia and spars with our neighbor to the north. So, Luke, what's going on here? Are we entering a new world order?
We're taking a step in that direction, and it's a big step. I'm an American because my ancestors fled the former Soviet Union, Lithuania in particular, because they didn't want to be conscripted in the Russian army. And so here I am a few generations later as the first person in my family to earn a PhD and be fortunate to live and teach and serve throughout Europe. And it's so disturbing and disorientating to me to see how President Trump has handled the conflict with Russia, essentially putting tremendous pressure on our democratic ally in Ukraine, withholding weapons now, withholding intelligence, and basically trying to submit them into a ceasefire and signing over half their mineral rights to us, which significantly benefits a dictator in Vladimir Putin. And so I don't think we can just shake this one off, and Europe is trying to figure out how to respond. The problem for Ukraine is that 90% of their aid comes from us and Europe. So if you take us out of the equation, we're roughly half of that 90%. It's extraordinarily difficult for Europe to make that up, and they're in a dire situation.
Yeah, and yet they met, I think it was yesterday, in Brussels to talk about ways that they can commit more of their budgets to this. And so you're saying you don't think that's really going to be feasible?
I think Europe will give more money, but I don't think it can fill the hole that is being vacated by the United States.
Yeah, and Luke's right, at least short term. I do think that long term, if they're fully committed, which they do appear to be, and rightfully so, they should be, I do think that they can long term. But the problem is the weeks or months between that without the intelligence that doesn't cost us much to give them, quite honestly. That is hard to grasp that we're doing that, withholding that. I can get the money part. I get that we want to cut costs, but the fact that we're not helping them in any way whatsoever is scary.
Yeah, it's scary. What do you think that's about? I mean, let me play devil's advocate here and say that what Trump might be trying to do is to make these very generous overtures to Putin in order to make him more amenable to ending the war. You think this might be the
Yeah, I do. I do believe that Trump believes that the ends do justify the means. And I do. I agree 100% with devil's advocate that that's what he's doing. He's transactional. And strategically, it makes sense. I can get it. Rationally, I can get it. But people are losing their lives. People lost their lives last night in Ukraine due to not having intelligence and not having the defense mechanisms in place.
You know, you're absolutely right. Trump and company are transactional. And I'm going to add one other thing that is the human component of this that we don't think about. Trump literally spent his whole first term envious of Obama. Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize. And somewhere in the back, I firmly believe this, somewhere in the back of his mind, if he can negotiate this peace between Ukraine and Russia, I think in his mind, he thinks, okay, and I'm sure there'll be, I don't know what the nomination process is, but somehow he'll get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize because Obama has one. But I also do agree that he sees this as a way of influencing Putin. Now, I think from Putin's point of view, this probably is fine. If you think this influences me, fine. I'll let you believe that, and then, I'll make whatever deal I make with Ukraine, let there be peace for a little while, and then I'll just make my next move. I don't think Putin doesn't see what Trump is trying to do. But the other component of this is that here you have the U.S. president changing what has been a part of American foreign policy in the sense that America made itself the world's police person. Now, this occurred during the Cold War, but America made itself that way. And so we've benefited from that. And that's the part I think that Europe, without saying it publicly, is responding to, is America, you made yourself the world's policeman, so now do that or don't.
Yeah.
Taking a quick step back, we've been talking about New World Order, but mostly we've been talking about Russia and Ukraine. Here's who the U.S. has allied itself with: Libya, Iran, and Yemen, the other three countries that are no longer and never been part of the Paris Agreement. So that's who we're keeping company with. The Paris Agreement addresses climate change. It's really important global issue. And who's filling the void and the gap on that is China. And so I just want to say a much bigger issue here in the New World Order is the role of China diplomatically. They're taking over the world. They're building all the relationships in Latin America and Africa that we should be building as we cut our State Department and cut our diplomatic missions. And that's going to have consequences too.
Yeah, it's going to have huge consequences. I suspect that we will come back to this topic again.